Well, before I even mention anything else, for those of you who watched yesterday, he won. My son won the American Legion Award, which is pretty friggin' incredible. If you stick around to the end of the video, I will brag about it. I will talk about it. One day I hope he listens to the video to hear how proud I am. But in the meantime, we're waiting on Amazon earnings today. It's 12:35. I'm going to talk about the markets, what I think about Amazon earnings, and get into what I'm doing today with this.
Want to make your money work harder? Enjoy another video with Adam Kahn, the rational investor, on stocks, real estate, and crypto. Subscribe now for your weekly dose of investment insights and hopefully learn a thing or two.
Hello, my YouTube friends, and happy Thursday. So, forgive me, what I got going on, I know I've mentioned it other days. On Thursdays, my son's got swim kind of late, so I told my wife I would cook dinner on Thursdays because it gives me enough time to get some of it done, have him come home and eat. Every other day she cooks, which is super cool. I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky. Anyway, today we got Amazon earnings. I'm breading some cutlets because I'm going to do a chicken parmesan. Super simple. If you're curious and you're watching along, you'll see how easy it is. She's already pounded out the chicken so they're nice and thin. All I got is some flour, some egg wash, and some breadcrumbs. Um, and that's all it really takes. So those of you who are intimidated by cooking or think it's more than it is, it's like so simple and kind of helps me ease my mind a lot of times. Anyway, we got Amazon earnings today. We've had really good responses with the other earnings reports that have come out. Google really crushed it. The stock rallied afterwards. Then it seemed to taper off and fall back below 160. Today, last I saw, it looked like it was beginning to inch its way back up, which to me is a really good sign. I feel like Google's probably going to continue to lag, but at the same time, it feels to me like a lot of these things have kind of bottomed. Now, this is not trading advice. Please, as always, you need to do your own research when making these decisions and not listen to me or really anybody else on YouTube for that matter. Mainly because we all have different situations. Not only do you need to do your own research, but you need to make sure it matches your income, how much you're putting away every month, how comfortable you are with the positions, and not follow anybody else's advice, especially because you don't know when they're getting in and getting out, which is what I've discussed before. I have a set it and forget it account, which is really just kind of buy and hold, which I think is the best strategy. For those of you who have a regular job, I think it's a great idea to kind of dollar cost average and just kind of stick with a monthly amount that you consistently put in. Because I promise you, if you do that over 20, 30, 40 years, you'll be really happy with the outcome. You want to stick with an ETF? That's fine too, but you want to pick individual stocks to see how you do. There's kind of some enjoyment in that. Now, anyway, back to Amazon. Part of why I don't always talk about the numbers and what I expect isn't because I don't watch them. And the stocks that I own and have the biggest positions in, not only do I watch them, I listen to reports to get my opinion on what I think, whether the earnings are good or bad. I try to listen to the voice of the CEO, even though I know that they're all professionals and, they're going to say what they want to say. But I try to use my judgment to see, do I believe them? Do I think things are going to continue to grow going forward? If they have some problems right now, do I think it's something that they're going to be able to overcome? Like, what's going on? But when I do the videos, part of why I don't get into it is I usually talk about the trading account, and what's more important to me than the actual earnings is the price action afterwards. And what I'll tell you, and I've said it in another video, one of the things I remember most about a finance class I took years ago was the professor teaching us how much more important it is to pay attention to the reports that come out, and the price action does the opposite of what you'd expect. Meaning, earnings come out great, but the stock sells off. Or earnings come out terrible and a stock rallies. The reasoning behind that, and part of what he was getting into, was if that's what's going on, the smart money is generally doing what's right. The board members, the people who are in communication with them, they tend to actually know what's going on despite the reports. So, great news and the stock collapses. Somebody's selling. Why are they selling and who is selling? Because the earnings came out great. Well, generally, that's institutional or board members or smart money. It's not the retail investors because they're going to follow what the news was. And if the news was good, they're probably buying. So when you see it sell off, pay close attention or go higher on bad news, either way, and then just pay attention from there. Now, nobody really knows where stocks are going to go. And I mean, really nobody, except for maybe Pelosi, which that's a different thing. You know, they say that the only people who are profitable or beat the market consistently are government employees, our senators and congressmen, which is why there's always these bills up for potentially making it where they can't trade or they have to have like blind trusts and things like that. And then the worst is the ones who I think are most egregious about all of it. They say they're fine with it, but you can't really stop their spouses, which okay, so I don't buy something, but my wife does. You know, if I'm running a certain committee and I'm well aware that some big grant is going to be given to Nvidia, for example, and I'm just making it up, but and the laws have been changed where I'm not allowed to trade, but lo and behold, my wife and my son, they buy a bunch of Nvidia, and whoa, look at that, the stock goes higher. That's really no better, no matter whether the rules have been changed or not. Either way, waiting on Amazon's earnings. I'm going to go throw out the gloves, clean up a bit, and then I'll come back and talk some more. Now, while Meta is my largest holding, Amazon is my second or third largest holding. I'd have to take a look, but I tend not to pay attention to the set it and forget it account, so I'm really not sure where it lays, but it is one of my larger positions. As much as I hope the stock continues to rally, in an account that I plan to be there for 10 years or longer, it makes no difference to me. And I'm not adding on to the position, or I'd actually hope that it goes lower because I can buy the shares for less money if the stock fell. And if my time horizon is 10 or 20 years, my hope for now would to be able to buy as many shares as possible. You know, my mentality with the account that I just put away is buy as many shares as possible and just accumulate and continue to accumulate until it's time to retire. And then my hope is I can shift into dividend stocks and just have that income coming in to be able to live off of. Maybe that's realistic, maybe it isn't. I think that I've gotten close enough. And what amazes me with this most recent pullback is I see a lot of really good companies where the dividends have gotten above 5% and they're using less than like 60% of their positive cash flow to be able to pay the dividend, which makes me feel pretty comfortable that they should be able to continue to pay that dividend going forward. You know, I love T. Rowe Price, I love Prudential, I love Verizon, all of these, and Archer Daniel Midland, and there's some others too that I made a whole list of that have actually pulled back in price. I don't really see anything going wrong with the companies themselves. I think the tariff scares and I think the up and downs of the new administration and how erratic things are have caused a sell off. And it's kind of like the baby with the bathwater. Like, I don't really see anything wrong with these companies. I've been banging my hands on the table about Target because, man, they crush it on earnings. Their growth rate is good. They get in the news about being woke, then they weren't woke. People are boycotting it. All of these negative things are generally things that I really like because the reason I like about them is I want to buy decent or good companies when nobody else likes them because then they're discounted. Now, they could get worse, things could get lower, the news could get really bad. Look at Sears from 20 years ago, and then they went out of business. Like, things like that do happen. But if you spread out to a decent number of companies so that you're not fully invested in one place, if you buy enough targets, now I would try to keep it to maybe 15 or 20 of them. I don't want to spread out to a small amount of company, you know, small amount of investment into 50 different companies because if I have to sell something, what a pain to go through and make that decision. But if I put an okay amount into 15 or 20 of them, paying maybe a 5% or 6% dividend, that I'm comfortable that they should be able to continue paying that forward based on the earnings they have now, well, that's a great portfolio to be able to rely on. I've actually thought of taking some of the growth stocks in my set it and forget it and start rolling into some of these ones where the dividend has really gone up a lot. In fact, one that everybody seems to hate is Pfizer, which had earnings recently. They continue to beat expectations. And when I look at the numbers, it's like they make plenty of money to be able to pay the dividend. They had a rough year a couple of years back where that wasn't so much the case, but it does seem to be that way now. They've been around a long time. They have smart people on the board. My guess is it's just not something that's going to go straight up in value, but they're paying over a 7% dividend. Even if the dividend continues to only increase, I think the past 5 years it's averaged only 2%. So people think of that like it's underperforming inflation, but not really. If it's paying a 7% dividend, the 7% is above inflation rates. As long as it can continue to pay that, I don't care how little it goes up from there. That's a good return on the investment. Of course, you have the risk that maybe they can't, and maybe you have issues with Pfizer, but man, they're paying 7%. Verizon is paying over 6%. All three, I think T. Rowe Price and Prudential are both paying over 5%. And then Archer Daniel Midland is in the high fours. All really good companies. Not my favorites. I still think Amazon and Meta I like better. I think over time the growth stocks probably do well. But I also think this is a great opportunity for some of these ones that are dividends to rotate into potentially an income account instead of a growth account. I don't know, just something I was thinking about. In the trading account, I have some Amazon going into the number today, so of course I'm hoping it goes higher. I had a little Meta going into that number. I had some Google that I got out of, but I've actually been picking it back up as it fell below 160. Again, I don't really see it shooting back up. They still have all the Department of Justice stuff going on. Um, there's a lot of concern about what's going on with AI and maybe the future. In fact, I went to high school with Ben Reitz's, and I know he compared them to Eastman Kodak, and he doesn't really see a future. So he sent me some information that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I do plan to read about what they're reviewing and why he doesn't like the company. I find it really interesting, and I've known Ben since I was, I don't know, 15 or 16 years. In fact, I've known him longer. I just don't really remember before because we used to live near each other with Dean Agreement and some others. Anyway, besides that, I respect Ben. I know he's a bright guy. I know his family. So I'd like to see what his thoughts are, even though I still like them as a company. And me, I'm seeing the search engine is still growing. So the concerns that AI are going to make it obsolete, at least for now, that hasn't been the case. And I want to make my bets based on what's going now because trying to guess the future is really hard. It's why I try to look at the earnings for now. It's why when I talk about housing, at least for now, things seem okay, even though there's a lot of doom and gloomers pointing to legitimate things that are going on with interest rates being high and prices being high that give good reason that there could be a correction. And maybe there will be, which is why you need to do the research for you. But man, if I were not in the position where I already owned my house and I rented, I would be doing the best I could to save up for a down payment to get into a home so I could own it. Now I'm older. I have a kid. I have a wife. I want the security of being in the area I want to be in. I want to live near our friends. I want to be in the school districts I want to be in. There's a whole lot of things that go into that consideration that really have nothing to do with an investment. If I were looking for an investment property, at least here in Las Vegas, to me, I kind of agree with the doom and gloomers. The math doesn't make sense. I'm not really interested in getting a 2% return, which seems about what it would be if you would pay cash. That's how I analyze an investment property. Even though I would be taking on a mortgage, I'd probably be putting 25% down. When I look at whether I think it's a good investment or not, my analysis is if I were paying cash after taxes, insurance, a little bit that I'm considering for repairs and headaches, and potentially a month a year where I'm not being rented out, what type of return am I getting on that cash investment? And then on top of it, do I see prices continuing higher? But keep in mind, there are headaches with owning rental properties. We have one, and it's not a big deal. We have a good renter. He doesn't ask for too much. He checks in and has questions, but he's not like, I've had some bad renters, so it's really not a complaint. But you do have things that come along with it. And I make jokes about the stock market that'll give me, at least right now, a 5% dividend. And I don't expect that T. Rowe Price is ever going to call me up and say, hey, can you come out to this warehouse because the air conditioner is broken? We need a little help getting those fixed. I joke with my buddy Steve about that all the time. I've never gotten the phone call, nor do I expect to. And if I ever did, I'd be pretty flattered that somehow they know who I am and they're calling me for a suggestion on fixing something with the company. I do have some great ideas for Nike, though. I think they're just a little outdated with their advertising. And I've been tempted to call them up and say, hey, how about I work for free with some stock options, or you pay me in stock if I'm able to increase revenue? Because I have some unbelievable marketing ideas that I think they're too old and too outdated to really think of. I think there's some social media having nothing to do with me, just some ideas I've come up with where they could really help move that brand and get those shoes out there and create some goodwill that would help people want to get their product again. I think it, kind of like when they took on Michael Jordan, I think they've kind of fallen out where there's too many shoes like that, too many superstars that correlate with this brand or that one, that it's just way too diluted. But there's a new group of people that I think that they could work with to really start that up again. Anyway, I'm going to brag in a couple minutes about the Legion Award. I'm going to talk about how proud I am and how cool it was. I got another about 15 minutes until the market closes, and I wanted to see what happened with Amazon. So stick around for the rest of it, and we'll get into that stuff. So I know I talk about it all the time about how proud I am of my son. And again, forgive me because I know this is a channel about investing and it's not supposed to be about my personal stuff and things like that. But when I tell you I'm really proud of the fact that my son won this award, like, I'm blown away. I really am. He's 14 years old. And a little while back, maybe a month or two ago, we received a notification from the school that he was being considered for this American Legion Award. Now, it's a pretty prestigious award and it's national. A lot of the middle schools offer it. I don't want to say it's valedictorian because it's not, and it's not just based on grades alone. But they take into account your grades, they call it scholarship, leadership, community service, sportsmanship, and then patriotism as well. Now, Jacob works really hard and he's super tough on himself. My wife pushes him a bit, but you know, at this point, now that he's in eighth grade, it's not like we sit there to make sure his homework's done. We're not on him about that stuff. As long as his grades are good and he's getting all A's, um, we don't really make or check or push him on it. He also does swim. He volunteers. I know I post that Miracle League with the chicken dance every Saturday. But what we did is, not only are we coaches, but he is as well. Well, it's not underprivileged kids, it's kids with disabilities, but any of them, anything from kids in wheelchairs to kids who have minor disabilities, where we have these, it's not really baseball, it's a soft foam ball, but we meet every week and they have a game, and I think there's like 10 or 20 teams in it, and the kids play and they look forward to it every week, and Jacob is the coach. He organizes the team, he sets the batting order, he hands in the sheet to the announcer. Like, it's a cool thing. They have a whole scoreboard and everything. So he volunteers and does that. He's on a swim team. And when I tell you a swim team, they'll do like an hour and a half to 2 hour swim practices 5 days a week. Now, he can usually only make it 3 or 4 because he's also on the debate team and he also is on Junior Honor Society. So he's doing all of these things and he works really hard and he's constantly tough on himself. So it was unbelievable that the school recognized it. Anyway, we get that letter a couple of months ago, and they interviewed somewhere between 10 and 15 of the students who all have good grades and do extracurricular stuff and everything else. And he wasn't too optimistic because when he saw some of the competition, one of them, a good friend of his who's like a super bright guy, it just made him feel like, I have no chance of winning. Well, honestly, they had this award ceremony last night, and when I saw the docket or whatever it's called, like a playbill or whatever where you go and they tell you and they have all the kids. But I knew that everyone there was winning something, and my understanding is anybody who had over a certain GPA, which he and his friends all did, that they all get an award. But I see on the list that they're going to give out the Legion Award, and I kind of think, oh shit, because what went through my head is if you won, they probably let you know. So when I saw that they were announcing the award, I just thought he hadn't won. It was the first thing they did. It's four people for four kids who are on like ROTC or ROTC, and then a woman who I think she's part of the armed services comes out. She talks about it. She talks about how prestigious it is, and then she makes the announcement and says, "And I just want to say congratulations to Jacob Kahn." And his face and the excitement and the thrill, I, I can't tell you how proud I was. I mean, I'm proud of him anyway. I really am. I don't tell him enough, but it was super cool to see. I was excited. My wife was excited. We had a really nice night. So I want to say congratulations. I want to share it with everybody on here. So it's super cool. Anyway, do me a favor if you can. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, make some comments in the comment section. Tell me what you guys think about the Amazon earnings and what you expect.